Before he became Pope Francis, Jorge Mario Bergoglio was just a priest in Buenos Aires. Humble, quiet, and deeply compassionate, he served the people no one else would. But behind those kind eyes lay stories no one had ever heard, stories of unspoken miracles, heavy sacrifices, and unwavering faith. Cue soft piano and violin music. Show bustling streets of Buenos Aires, a small, worn-down church, and a young Father Bergoglio kneeling in prayer. In a poor district on the outskirts of the city lived Elena and her 9-year-old daughter Lucia. Elena worked 2 jobs just to keep a roof over their heads. One rainy afternoon, Lucia didn't return home from school. Panic turned to horror as hours became days. Elena searched everywhere: police stations, hospitals, alleyways. She was dismissed repeatedly. "Runaway," they said. But Elena knew better. Her daughter wasn't a runaway. Desperate, she walked to a small Jesuit church where she had once seen a kind priest with silver-rimmed glasses. She found Father Bergoglio sweeping the chapel floor. "My daughter is gone," she cried. 3 days. Now. I have nothing but this. She held out Lucia's favorite shoes, little red ones with frayed laces. Father Bergoglio didn't ask questions. He simply said, "Leave them here. Tomorrow, we will pray." The next morning, the small chapel was unusually full. Elena placed the shoes on the altar. Without drama, without grand speech, Father Bergoglio led a prayer. It lasted only 5 minutes, but witnesses swore they felt something in the air, a warmth, a quiet force. After the prayer, Bergoglio asked everyone to leave silently. That night, alone in the chapel, he lit a candle and knelt before the red shoes. He whispered a prayer so quietly no one ever knew what he said. Meanwhile, in an abandoned bakery 2 miles away, Lucia hid in a flour bin. She had been taken by a man known for trafficking children, but she escaped when the man left the door open. Too frightened to move, she cried herself to sleep. That night, she said, she dreamed of a priest with kind eyes who said, "Wait here, little dove. Morning will bring you home." She woke up to the sound of rain and a homeless man rummaging for food. He found her, carried her to the police station, and disappeared. No one knew who he was. Lucia was safe, with only 1 shoe on. When Elena brought Lucia to the church the next Sunday, the chapel was silent. Father Bergoglio met them at the door. Lucia ran to the altar and saw her missing shoe. "That's where he left it," she said. "The priest in my dream." Elena turned to Bergoglio, who only smiled and said, "Miracles are not ours to claim. They are only ours to witness." That night, Bergoglio made a confession to an old friend, a fellow priest. "I have never felt such weight," he whispered. To be there for her, to feel the pull of something holy, something beyond this world. Lucia grew up to become a teacher, helping children in the very neighborhood where she had once disappeared. She often told her students, "Never stop believing in the kindness of strangers." When Jorge Mario Bergoglio became Pope Francis in 2013, Lucia sent him a letter. "Dear Holy Father, you are the man in the dark. I do not know how. I do not need to know why. But thank you for my life." The letter was never answered publicly, but that Christmas, during his blessing in St. Peter's Square, Pope Francis mentioned, "A child who once returned from the shadows by the grace of God and the silence of faith." In 2016, the Vatican faced scandal. Whispers of embezzlement, betrayal, and a high-ranking cardinal involved in deceit shook the faith of millions. Pope Francis called for a day of silence, fasting, and prayer. No interviews, no politics. That night, a power outage blackened Rome. But in a small private chapel in the Vatican, a single candle stayed lit. It was the same one he had used decades ago in that small chapel in Buenos Aires. The next morning, An envelope lay under that candle. Inside was a full confession signed by the corrupt cardinal. He later told the Pope, "I dreamed of a girl in red shoes and a priest weeping in silence. I couldn't carry the guilt anymore." Pope Francis visited Argentina quietly in 2017. He requested no media. One morning, dressed in simple black robes, he visited an old classroom. Lucia was teaching math. She looked up and smiled. No words were exchanged. He handed her a small box. Inside were her red shoes, preserved in glass. "Thank you," she whispered. "No," he replied. "Thank you for believing in light, even in the dark." Miracles don't always come with thunder or fire. Sometimes they come in the quiet, in the faith of a child, in a priest's silent tears, in a pair of red shoes. And sometimes the man who becomes pope carries more than the weight of the church. He carries the stories no one knows. Fade out with emotional orchestral music and imagery of Lucia teaching, Pope Francis praying, and a candle glowing. This story is inspired by true events, in honor of silent miracles everywhere.